right, in this video, we're going to cover kind of how to approach the home search process. I know that we all kind of start with this vision of what the perfect home looks like, but don't want to discourage you from that. But I want to also anchor us in kind of a very pragmatic approach that's going to make the process efficient and actually enjoyable for you. And so, what I have found in talking to a number of clients is that really there's kind of a tiered process that I would encourage you to think about it as you're kind of looking for your new home or your next home. So when the most foundational piece at the base is what kind of a monthly payment are you comfortable committing to? That will definitely kind of narrow the field significantly, but it's something that you have to take into consideration, right? If you had uh, boundless amounts of funds that you can put at it, you have way more options, of course. But the reality is that we all are kind of confined a bit by what our income is. And so we want to make sure that we're located, we're being as intentional as possible as we're looking at homes. And so the first criteria is really going to be what kind of a monthly payment are you comfortable committing to? The formula that's about 90 to 95% accurate, based on my experience, is that consider that for every $100,000 that you borrow, that you're going to have about a $600 per month payment. So for example, if you borrow $300,000, you divide that by 100,000 gives you 3, and you multiply that by 600, giving you 1,800. So for a mortgage, a loan at 300,000, you can pretty much expect to pay around $1,800 per month, right? And so that, what the fortunate thing about that is that that's all inclusive of your principal and interest, which is your loan, your annual property taxes, and your annual home insurance. So what happens is out of that $600, they take the portion that goes to the principal and loan, pay that off. They take the portion that goes towards your property taxes, hold that in a holding account, and they take the portion that goes towards your home insurance and hold that in a holding account. And then that escrow company pays those off for you twice a year for the property taxes and once a year for the home insurance, right? Um, so that's going to be a big factor in determining kind of where you end up looking for a home is what kind of a monthly payment you're comfortable making. From there, the next set of criteria is the structural components, right? So depending on if you need a lot of rooms or a lot of square footage, you kind of want to figure out what's your minimum criteria that you could feel comfortable, right? So I don't want you to necessarily just kind of settle for whatever's within your budget, but be as intentional as you can be to determine like, okay, can I make a 2 or 3 bedroom home work? And can I make a single bathroom, or do I absolutely, at minimum, need a bathroom and a half, or 2 full bathrooms, depending on who's going to be occupying the home with you, right? So those are the key criteria that I would also have you consider. And so when you're kind of filtering through whatever your preferred home search app is, whether that be Zillow, Redfin, Trulia, whatever, what I would encourage you is start with that price point. So determine what your monthly mortgage payment, what's the comfortable level of a monthly mortgage payment for you. Start with that, divide that by 600, and then multiply that by about 100,000. Okay, and you can add an additional 3% on top of that because that'll be kind of your down payment, so 3.5 or 5%, depending on what your down payment's going to be. On top of that, so that you have the total purchase price. But do that math first, and then enter into the max price slot in the search engine, in the search field for whatever tool you're using to look at homes. And then from there, I'd encourage you, instead of starting with the bedrooms, start with the bathroom. So if one bathroom works for you, great, leave it as is, and then start with the bedrooms. But if you know for a fact that you need a minimum a full bath and a minimum a half bath, put that in there. If you know you need a minimum 2 full bathrooms, put that in there, right? Because that'll also kind of narrow the field for you so we can be much more focused about what we're looking at. Once you take a look at what's there, and you can then apply the bedrooms, that's going to really start to hone in. So you kind of see with each additional filter that you put onto the map kind of gets a little bit more clear over where these types of homes that fit this criteria lie in the area. That's why I see this third kind of category of criteria, the variables, really are the location and the lot size. And the reason for that is that budget will dictate kind of where you're looking, right? It's an unfortunate reality, but it very much is a reality. And so as you start to see on the map where homes that fall within your budget and your structural criteria, the next thing I would encourage you to do is, if you're not familiar with these neighborhoods, that you actually take the time to go visit them. drive through them. What I have found is a lot of people try to paint certain neighborhoods with a broad brush about like, oh, I've heard this about this neighborhood. I would really encourage you to actually drive out there because in many cases, and I would say from my experience, it's pretty much every neighborhood has some streets that you could actually like get really excited about, and it has some streets that you're kind of like not so excited about. And that's pretty much every neighborhood. I can't quite say that any one neighborhood captures either a completely great vibe and the other neighborhood captures um, a not so great vibe, especially at different price points. Once you start to get up into the higher end, of course, they're going to look a little bit more impressive. But for most of us that are looking at first time home buying, it really do encourage you to go out and not just write off neighborhoods because you actually want to go out there, see them, look at the distance from where places you need to be. So if you have kids in school and you want to keep them in a certain school, figure out what does that drive look like. If you have a job that you have to physically be at, what does that drive look like? What does that commute look like, right? If you haven't used it, Google has a great function. Google Maps, I should say, has a great function where you can put in addresses and also kind of like departure and arrival times, and it will kind of give you a window of what that commute would look like during that exact time. And so really helpful. So as you're really kind of approaching this search process, this is the approach that I would encourage you to make. Start with the price, go on to structural, and really based on those, start to look at those communities that come up because it seems kind of related to location. Depending on what communities you're looking at, you might find yourself getting a lot more land for your buck, right? And typically what we're finding is the further out from the city core, so the downtown area you are, lots tend to be bigger. So you could be paying, for example, the home that we bought last year's for, we could be paying the same amount for a home in Tahoe Park, which is where our first home was, but we'd be getting a radically different home. A Tahoe Park home is about 1,100 square feet on a tenth of an acre. The home that we bought in Larchmont Riviera is 2,300 square feet and about 0.15 acres, so about 50% bigger than our home, the lot, than our home in Tahoe Park, right? And the price points are just the Tahoe Park home is actually more expensive, despite being smaller, right? Because location proximity to the downtown core is closer, and so it's going to dictate that price point going up just based on that criteria alone. So hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next video.